Anything you want or who you want to be, you can be. Just remember those who make this life so easy. Raise them up to the small town believers. Hats off to the fighters and the leaders.
All right, welcome back to Pints and Politics, episode 7. We're going to kick off this week, Heath.
Wait a minute. Tell the listener, who was that music we were just listening to?
Oh, that was Matt Tucker Band. They just released their new album. It is a local band. The album's called Untucked. I definitely suggest you buy it because you're supporting a local artist.
Yeah.
But not only that, the American Dreamer song that is on there, he's given us permission to use on our podcast. And that is something that is filmed on South Carolina military bases. And I think it fits, man. It's just one of those songs that kind of makes you swell up with pride.
It's good.
Well, okay. Since I was so rudely... No, I'm just kidding. Did you know that playing pinball in South Carolina is illegal if you're under the age of 18?
Did not know that.
I started getting calls. I guess there's a brewery in Fort Mill that kind of hung up a sign stating the law. And I was like, nah, that's one of them dumb laws. Surely it's been overrode.
Right.
No. Valentine's Day.
Really?
I'm texting legal staff like, is this really a rule?
Oh yeah, that was. I think we had a little fun.
Yeah, but
fun with that one.
That's one of them ones that we should be able to repeal pretty easily,
or at least give local options. I mean, to have a referendum on it.
Pinball is the devil's game, though. You got to be careful.
It's slippery slope. That leads us good into one of the bills that we talked about this week on the House, which was Sunday liquor sales.
Yes. And now, granted, it was not just making it okay for everyone to sell liquor on Sunday.
Correct.
It was a referendum, which means it's just going to go on the ballot if the local
option
want to put it on the ballot, then they can.
Being a home rule guy, I supported it. Folks, local government's the best government. It's the most in tune with the people, and that's why I actually had a constituent call me about it, and she's a teetotaler, does not drink one bit, but her and I sat on the phone for probably 10 minutes, and she said, "Listen, my husband and I don't drink, but I think people should have the option to make that choice for themselves." Yeah. And I was like, you know what? I 100% agree. So
I struggled on that one because I kind of agree with that. But at the same time, I feel like it's kind of one of those Southern things of having those blue laws and liquor not on Sunday.
Yeah.
I still remember those days. So
I
voted against it. It still passed. But I did vote against it. All I could think about was, how do I explain this to my pastor? But
are you Catholic?
No, I'm not. But
okay.
My pastor's Southern Baptist, and lost a parent due to alcoholism. So he's always talking about the dangers of alcohol. Same with my grandparents.
And there's merit to that. There's merit to. I think we talked about this when we were talking about the medical marijuana stuff. And that's a hurdle that I'm trying to see if I can get over.
Yeah.
The greater access to these things like alcohol or marijuana or whatever. There's an argument to be made. And I think there's statistics that show the greater access, the greater use. And is that, a good thing for public health in South Carolina?
Or is it government trying to tell you what you can and can't do? And is there a lobby that's actually making more money to keep some of these things out of play?
I don't know how you can be consistent on stuff like that, because you voted against the liquor sales, right?
No, I wasn't there, so I didn't vote on it.
I mean Sunday sales.
Sunday sales. I did vote against putting it on the referendum.
What are you thinking about on the medical marijuana?
On the medical marijuana, we still have to read the bill. If I'm going off of Tom Davis's previous bill, I thought that it was good and strong and for medicinal purposes. Now, as we discussed
and
before,
let's give the two listeners, possibly three, you said now. Yeah. Let's give them some background. Senator Davis is probably one of the smartest guys in the room.
Yes.
So, whereas, I think I've authored a few bills. Man, I think 4 pages is like the max, okay? Senator Davis, nope, there ain't no cap to the page limit on his bills. So his medical marijuana, his energy that he put out this year, thick stack. You know, I mean, it's like if you go in and order a bologna sandwich, that's the thickness of that bologna is about as thick as what Senator Davis's bills are. you know, about yay big. You know, yeah. And so I haven't read the whole bill either. I have sat in the Senate chamber and listened to Senator Davis talk about it, and man, it's just well thought out.
Well, and I am for the complete medicinal use. Now, granted, this bill does not have flower, meaning that you're not smoking any plant.
Yeah.
You know, but I was informed that it does allow you to have the oil that can be smoked through a vape. And then that kind of, depending on what the situation is. And I don't think it's so much as the product. It depends on the doctors that are prescribing and if the pharmacy can fulfill. But this bill, from my understanding, there are 41 changes in this bill from his previous bill.
Oh, gotcha.
And that's where I need to see the bill before I start commenting on whether I agree. His previous bill, I think I was pretty much in agreement with it and supportive of it. Mm-hmm. We mentioned before, I've got a tattoo for epilepsy. It's something that is very strong in my opinion. And if something's out there to help, I don't think we should be turning it down.
And I think we talked about this. I'm not sure if it was last episode or the previous one, but you know, it kind of makes you wonder, would the interest groups get out the way they get out if marijuana wasn't attached to it?
Well, that's the reason they call it the Compassionate Care Act.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, we get, and again, I'm not trying to, I don't wear a tinfoil hat and black helicopters following me, but you know, the Pfizer vaccine, there's a lot of stuff, new information coming out about the COVID vaccine. And, you know, some of the harmful effects that are being linked to that vaccine. And, you know, we let that fly through Operation Warp Speed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And we're giving medicinal marijuana in, say, South Carolina a much more thorough review, as we should. So I'm trying to keep an open mind.
And I'm hearing it's the most conservative
medical. And it's got an automatic sunset. 8 years.
Of 8 years. But the fear, and I spoke with a very conservative Christian organization today prior to coming in here about it, because I had seen, I think the tagline was "What's in the air? Is it pot or something else?" But at that time, and it's like the picture's all marijuana plants, and I called just to say, hey, you do realize this is no plant. No one's smoking marijuana.
Correct.
But, you know, at the same time, I was given some very valid points, such as the amount of changes, and they have no problem with things changing on a federal level, the scheduling, so that way it can be. And ultimately, that's what we need to do. We don't have to legalize in each state whenever it's still illegal federally.
Yeah.
On the federal level, they should change the schedule of it. That way it can be prescribed the same way as opioids.
Well, you know, so you're saying we're waiting on the D.C. politicians again?
No, that's the reason the states are getting.
I mean, whether it's tech, whether it's protecting a national border between us and Mexico, and now we got to wait on them for reclassifying marijuana.
Speaking of tech, I got an update on that today.
All right.
Got a phone call from D.C. Was speaking with some of the organizations, some of the staff members for senators up there. Whenever I went to D.C., there was 48 signers on the COSA bill, which is the Kids Online Safety Act.
Wait a minute. How many were there originally?
48.
Okay.
We needed to get to 50 to ensure that it's heard on the floor.
Right.
There are now 62, including the majority leader, Schumer, signed onto it.
Okay.
So there's going to be a good chance that it's going to get heard. It's very bipartisan, and it's going to go to the House.
Yeah, right.
And so now, but what I'm hearing is there's a big hang up in the House because there is funding going out to fight the opposition or to fight the bill. I don't know if you've seen my post.
Is that the net choice, folks? Isn't that what the tech is, the net choice lobby?
Well, there's different ones.
Okay.
So they fund these privacy lobbies too. I don't know if you got a text this week, but I got a text this week talking about how government wants to get all of your data. Please contact your congressman today. And that's what they're using is they want to expose everything that you're doing online like they're violating your privacy.
Like they aren't already? I mean, come on, man.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. So I guess the tech companies are saying that they want to be able to do it, but...
Yeah, and this doesn't require an ID to be uploaded. It's just the fear. They know people have a fear from that just because of Nikki's comment. It's like they're exposing and trying to play on that fear. And how often do we get emails? And I'm sorry if you guys are one of these people that email us through the groups, but please do not just buy into whatever a group's telling you, because you send us these emails that just have a false narrative.
We should do PSAs
Yeah.
for every episode. PSA for episode 7. If you want to contact your representative about a certain issue, do a little bit of research, figure out. So, for instance, the medical marijuana bill will be coming to, it's past the Senate. It's going to be coming to the 3M committee. Go find all the members on the 3M committee, in particular, the medical subcommittee that's going to get it first.
Yeah.
Contact those 5 or 6 folks, right? Or just the full committee and email all of them. But yeah, as Representative Guffey says, you go blasting 124 of us.
Once I see the same language in multiple emails, I look for that first sentence, and they automatically go in the trash. Mm-hmm. I'm not reading them. So, like this theory of grassroots making a difference on something, whenever you're sending a grassroots message and it's the same message coming out just because you filled out some information on a website, my filter's automatically putting it in the trash.
Right.
I'm not reading it.
So, second PSA for the episode. If you're contacting Representative Guffey, just change the first sentence.
Yeah, if you change the first sentence, I will read it. Seriously. I mean, I just can't stand the same message being sent, and especially those ones. You get the ones that have the messed up characters in the middle.
Yes.
Because whatever website's filling it out can't operate properly with the email chain, or the font doesn't line up.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
They go to a link, right? It takes them to a structured template.
Stop your reps from turning everyone into potheads.
All they're really doing is filling out their name, address, phone number, and then that, shipping it to us. So.
And then it sends you an email that makes it look like it comes from a constituent, which then, if I do see that the city is one of my constituents, which 95% are not, then I will reply to them.
Shout out to my man, Jordan Cooper.
I haven't seen an email from Jordan Cooper in a while.
That guy.
He's got his own file.
Yep. I tell you, I don't even know whose constituent he is, whether it's Representative Brewer, Robbie Robbins, or Chris.
Bamberg.
No. He's Somerville, baby. He's my hometown. Yeah.
That makes sense.
It
all makes sense now.
I just don't know what part of Somerville, whose district
and
that is.
Petalino.
Yeah, that's right. Hey, there's a lot. All roads lead back to Somerville, baby. So, but anyway, another one we did was the NIL.
NIL was good.
We had talked about that on a previous one. It had come out of committee. And, man, this one was pretty bipartisan, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Almost unanimous.
Common sense.
Yeah. And basically that bill tackled NIL deals. Currently, it's against NCAA regs that the university or university personnel is sort of in that activity in regards to the student athlete. So if the student athlete gets an NIL deal, I think current NCAA regs say that the school can't be a part of it.
Yeah.
And we just passed a state law. Well, we passed a bill. It's going to the Senate that says, wait a minute, we have coaches and staff that take care of these players and care about our student athletes. They should be involved.
Yeah, and I think Dabo said it best.
Oh,
the
here we
small
go.
percentage of players that are making it to a pro level, they're not there to just coach professional athletes. They're there to coach men, as he said, and that involves helping them with financial literacy. And that involves with helping them whenever they do have someone backing them with a big deal to ensure that they are setting up for their future, not just going out and blowing it out on a Lamborghini. Who is that? The Georgia quarterback. And also it helps our universities here with ensuring that they stay competitive, because other states don't have rules that the schools cannot help out. So that becomes an advantage, say, in Miami, and they say, well, if your son comes here, we've got these financial planners that are going to help with his NIL deal.
Well, and I think that's a big key. Coach Beamer talked about contract negotiations, financial literacy, saving that money for those who don't go pro.
Right.
And all valid points. And, and that's why this bill got such widespread support.
At 19, if I would have gotten a big contract, I would have had a brand new Wu-Tang Clan band with all kinds of speakers in it.
Hey, and with that, it brings Wu-Tang Financial, Woo. No, I'm just teasing. Shout out to Dave Chappelle.
Bound to be rude if you don't go woo.
Yep. And while we're on college sports, you and I threw out, it wasn't an original because found out that our colleague Nathan Ballantyne had already pre-filed this bill, back in 2010. But, with the ever-changing landscape of college sports.
You can't trust those career politicians.
That's right. But, so you and I pre-filed a bill, got read across the desk, Thursday?
Yeah, and I think it's important right now because conferences are going to be changing, so you explain the bill.
Bye-bye, ACC.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we just wanted to preserve the rivalry between Clemson and Carolina. And so we basically are going to make it a state law or try like hell to make it a state law that Clemson and Carolina, the premier university in South Carolina, plays the farm school from the upstate every year in college football.
There's not but one USC, and it is in South Carolina.
Hey, all jokes aside, guys, we just have a good time with it. But we'll see what happens. Maybe we can get it out of the house before the crossover.
Well, it used to be state law, but that was in 1952. Yeah, it was Big Thursday, which was a Thursday of Fair Week.
Yes, man.
But of course, that had to change considering how crowded things can get.
Yeah, for sure. So we're going to keep our eyes on that and see where we can. Where did that get referred to? Education?
I don't know.
I think it did.
I was so excited about the other bill getting filed.
Yeah.
That I did not pay attention whenever that one came through.
I think it did. I think it went to education. So we'll be sure to update y'all.
It should go to Ways and Means. As much money as those two universities get.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, all of our schools get money. But anyway, so the other bill that we filed, should we break into it?
Absolutely, right after this break.
Today's sponsor, of course, is Comer Distributing. Thank you, Chip and his team, for always doing a great job. And today's beer is off the tracks, and the flavor that we are having, I guess flavor would be the correct word, is Scanned Ale, which is named after the old Scandals bar back in the late 90s, early 2000s, was a hop in Winthrop place.
Did you ever go there?
I did not. I'm one of the few Rock Hill locals. Now, I picked up my wife from there a couple of times, but I never went.
Yep, she's going to kill you.
All right, so our bill, 5112.
Yeah, the other bill.
It is probably, in my opinion, it's one of the most important things that we need to address because it's been something that I have seen being a major problem since entering the South Carolina political scene. And the biggest problem that I have is, and I've said it many times before, it's the spin that comes back. Well, how do you increase that spin, or what makes that spin so bad? What could be the worst thing for that spin other than having someone that's running campaigns within that same body sitting on the floor? And to me, I find it corrupt. I've spoke about that before. Let me get your opinion on this, but we filed 5112, which would ban this from happening. Yeah,
so, if you are one of the 124 folks who have the duty and responsibility of representing the districts, the House districts, in the General Assembly, that's your job, right?
Right.
That's your job. Representing those 42,000 folks and making sure you're advocating on their behalf. And what our bill does says, hey, you cannot run for-profit campaigns if you sit in the House, and I think we specified the House, you cannot run campaigns for candidates running for the House of Representatives in the state of South Carolina.
Yes.
You can run sheriff's races, you can run county council, city council, you can run Senate races, but you cannot run for the body that you are a sitting member of.
Correct.
And not, and I had a conversation with a fellow freshman member and wanted to be very clear. By no means are we saying, well, let me back up. By no means am I saying that anyone in the House is corrupt. And the reason why I say that, and I took painful steps to explain, I am not saying anyone's corrupt. I am saying the same thing that I said when I said, man, I want to get all over that JMSC, the judicial reform. It's the potential conflict of interest that we have got to eliminate. It's the same thing. You cannot tell me that if I was a sitting member of the House.
I think it's far worse.
If I was a sitting member of the House and I'm running campaigns against colleagues in said House, you cannot tell me that I am not actually, I would be bad at one of the two jobs. Because if I'm a campaigner, if I'm running someone else's campaign, I'm looking for every single opportunity to make his opponent, who's a sitting member, an incumbent, look bad.
Right.
I may even throw up amendments. I may even sponsor bills to make them look bad. Right?
I agree. 1,000%. That becomes the problem.
And so
it's like, where did this amendment come from?
We are
right.
Correct. So I think this is just consistent. It's a no-brainer to me, but obviously it isn't for others.
And
so
now I do have legal working on an amendment for it to ensure that we are not trying to eliminate anyone's career. We're not trying to stop anybody from doing something that.
All right, so let me address that.
We're just trying to handle it for the body that they sit within.
Yep, let me address that. So when we came down here as freshmen, we talked about reforming the JMSC. What did we say? We said, listen, we got to get rid of, we heard all the stuff about lawyer legislators, did we not?
Yeah.
And we all said, listen, we're not saying that lawyer legislators cannot serve on the JMSC. If it were up to me, I would just say that lawyer legislator should know that if they choose to take the appointment from the speaker to sit on the JMSC, they then cannot practice in those courts where those judges are possibly presiding, right? So make a choice for yourself. You, as the lawyer legislator, make a choice. Do you want to serve on JMSC, or do you want to put food on the table for your family?
The only problem with that is JMSC handles every judge.
Okay, so say no.
So I know, but that takes away anyone that currently practices law from defending. Listen, and we want attorneys on there, which I think as we come up with the reform that's going to come out after furlough, I think the people will see there is true reform that's being proposed.
Yep. And I agree. I asked Travis Moore, sits right behind us. Him and Max Hyde are both attorneys. And I asked them, I said, hey, can you do this? And they're like, man, that'd be really difficult. And they even said, I think they used the word unreasonable.
Yeah.
And I said, okay. And I said, if it were up to you, would you serve on JMSC? And they were like, no, because it's too restrictive, right?
But
so
then
again, I'm just saying.
You got me who sells rocks for a living serving on JMSC?
Yeah. No. So that's why I stipulated if it were solely up to me, right?
Yeah.
I admit that I do not know everything, especially when it comes to electing judges. But trying to remain consistent, you and we all make sacrifices in life, right? That may affect our incomes. I did not vote on the Scout bill. I did not vote on the budget because of the potential conflict of interest that may have arisen if I got any of that construction contract.
And see, I would be fine with them not voting for the judges on the floor.
Right.
The whole JMSC thing, though, you have to have qualified individuals on there.
And again, I'd be fine with that too.
Yeah.
But so all I'm saying is, as members of the House, and I'm sure senators would agree, everyone's got to make sacrifices. You got to look around a corner or two before making your decision.
Yeah.
Right. And so they may impact your wallet. They may impact your livelihood. And you got to make a decision.
Right.
You either decide to vote and be the representative, or you decide to recuse yourself and say, due to my private interest or personal interest in this issue, I can't vote because I acknowledge that I may not be impartial, right? And so that's all we're saying with this law. Hey, man, choose. You either want to run campaigns for a living or don't run campaigns and be a member of the House.
Well, and there's multiple issues. So we've already got the problem. You can hear people saying, once you've served, then you can never become a lobbyist. I don't agree with that. Mm-hmm. I think
there's a 1 year.
There's a 1 year wait that you become an lobbyist. And I understand people are not happy because organizations may hire someone, and maybe I'm not educated enough to see all the issues with that. But I do think there's a problem with being a lobbyist and then running for a seat without having to have that 1 year cool off period as well. And I don't think anyone's talked about that at all. I do think running campaigns from the floor is no different than being a lobbyist with inside information on the House floor. And that I truly have a problem with, is that spin, that narrative.
Yeah.
If that's not happening, then I don't believe that you will see as many issues. Now, spin's going to happen. You got 124 so-called politicians sitting there.
Yeah.
But I don't think anyone feels like they're going to be walking into a trap every time someone puts something up just because it's for a campaign mailer.
Right. And again, to be fair to the other side, we're not saying that every issue that's taken up by this member is politically motivated.
No.
But therein lies the problem. You open yourself up to the credibility question, right? That's the issue.
And I will say this.
And I've had great personal relationships and one-on-ones, or been talking with him, me and you, and we've talked about this. And
right. And I have
great.
no problem. And just so everyone is aware, talking about RJ, runs Iron Tusk Consulting. And me and RJ, I have a problem.
Or Ivory Tusk.
Ivory Tusk, sorry.
Yeah.
I have a problem because whenever I was running for the seat, I had mailers sent out against me saying that I chose to defund the police, which was just ludicrous. And that goes back to the spin. But that's just as bad as the spin that the Freedom Caucus sent out saying 63 Rhino Republicans chose to not punish doctors for castrating children.
Right.
And therein lies my issue. And whenever you have someone running campaigns, and let's say you've got 17 members of one group, and they're wanting to increase the number of members that they have, well, who better? Who's going to benefit? Oh, my God. Who's getting all this money for all these campaigns to do this?
It's a possibility. Right.
And as we've said before, we've got to be above reproach, and that becomes an issue. I struggled with that whenever I was starting the nonprofit. Like, that's the reason I don't want to touch money at all. I want a board to handle everything. I don't pay myself anything out of it. I don't want to touch money whenever it comes to the nonprofit because I don't want to get lumped into that Clinton Foundation conversation, and I just don't want to be that guy, and I want to make sure everyone knows my hands are clean and my intentions are pure. And I'm not saying that RJ.
You start jumping on a private jet and heading to Epstein Island, I'm probably going to be the first whistleblower.
Well, is it still called Epstein? I thought they changed it.
Did they sell the island?
No, but
But again, trying to be consistent with accountability and transparency. The same thing that we're saying about judicial reform, we're saying with this bill. Hey, eliminate the potential for conflicts of interest.
And I don't want to kill anyone's career because was not breaking any rules when doing so. I've even thought about doing political consulting myself, but I don't think it's right to do it within the body that you sit in.
That is correct. And I think we should amend the bill.
We've got an amendment coming.
As far as this should be a state law to where if you sit on Dorchester County Council or York County Council, you can't run county council races.
Right.
It's like this insider trading. You shouldn't be able to do it. So that's the intent. That's the spirit of this bill.
It's using your office to move ahead.
So, We'll see what happens. Another thing that happened this week, Governor signed the ESG Pension Protection Act that we passed last year.
Yes.
I think the Senate passed it earlier this session or earlier this year, I should say. And, man, again, that was a no-brainer too.
I thought so. Now, you had a lot of people complaining, saying that it should just be about what's getting the best return. And I know.
Well, that's what this is.
Well, you have
this
companies like
saying,
BlackRock that implement ESG that have the highest return, and we're saying, nope, we're not investing with them.
We're saying the highest priority when it comes to investing retirement accounts for South Carolina employees is the rate of return. Nothing else.
Yeah, not using ESG as a deciding factor.
Yeah, that's right. So that got.
But are we saying that if they participate in ESG, then we can't invest?
I think it was strict in the language saying that our treasurer and the folks that run that retirement system are only looking at rates of return.
Okay.
So
then I'm definitely good with that. I thought it was also banning us from investing.
It's that old
into any company that has ESG.
It's that old Johnny Manziel.
Show me the money.
So.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the way it should be. I mean, we talk about DEI and CRT, all these other things. The problem isn't that the message is wrong. The messaging within it is not wrong.
Right.
The problem is Martin Luther King says, I want the day that, the exact words I don't know, so forgive me, but I want the day to where I'll be judged on the content of my character and not the color of my skin.
Yeah, actually, I think that is quoted.
And I think that we are past that point to where now we're trying to segregate ourselves based on the color of our skin. And now we're throwing in things such as sexual preference.
Yeah, well, when we talk about DEI, again, man, it's this thing of this box, right? We try to fit everything in this DEI box. And, what is DEI to you is different than what is DEI to me, and so on and so forth. You know what I mean? It's subjective. And we've got to just start. And, I had a great conversation with someone from the university system, and I said, listen, this DEI stuff, you may have a DEI facilitator, instructor, program, whatever, but it's different if you're teaching, hey, skin color doesn't matter, everybody is equal, we're all brothers and sisters in Christ, and diversity of thought.
Yes.
Is
but to say you're starting on a negative.
But correct. If DEI means, hey, you're white, so you're a colonizer, or your lineage is from a colonizer, and that you oppressed Native Americans,
it's in your DNA,
and you were part of the slave trade, and you should feel bad about it. And if you don't, actually, you know what? You're going to go ahead and pay penance now. You're going to go stand in the corner. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That is
and I'm not saying DEI is doing that.
Nope. But that's what I'm saying. Yeah. So this DEI cloud nebulous thing is one thing to you, one thing to someone else. And I think we just got to make sure that we're promoting and advocating everybody's equal.
And I could say the words diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Yeah.
I have no problem with.
Yeah.
Where I have a problem, and it goes back to I forget what it's called, but the government contracts. Have you ever lost business just for being a white male?
There are minority spins in contracts that have eliminated me from being able to bid work, yes.
I mean, I actually lost an existing contract to a woman-owned business.
Oh.
And it was just because they paid more just because it's woman-owned, and then the contract became part of a larger state contract. And also, we have 742 North.
Yeah, that's right.
So if you need a podcast studio, office space, be sure to reach out to those guys. Great space. Can't say enough good things about the podcast.
Yeah, conference room, workspace. Hey, and it's got a coffee bar right inside the lobby. So,
and they do happy hour on Fridays.
Do they really?
The Forte Lago, I guess is the way you say
it. Oh,
it.
okay.
Yeah. It's half off.
So you're going black coffee and Scandales.
Yes. I'm finishing up my mocha latte. All right. So, yeah, I mean, like I said, I just want to ensure that we are all treated equal. And nothing should be a deciding factor whenever it comes to your skin color, race, sexual orientation.
I know, man. And I think folks of our generation are like that.
Yeah.
You know, for the most part. Don't get me wrong, man. You're going to find knuckleheads everywhere.
Yeah.
In every shape, size, color. You know?
Right.
Knuckleheadedness is not exclusive to, you know, just because you got blonde hair.
Correct.
You know, so I don't know, man. Everybody's just got to stay sane.
And we're never going to stop the ending of that. I mean, because truthfully, I mean, we've got religions that only want to do business with people of the certain religion, right? We're going to have people that are going to have those bias, but I don't believe that it is the way that it once was, and I believe our generation is to change. Right. I think our kids are so much better.
Well, that's another thing. I mean, the whole topic of religion, I mean, you know, just because you're a Christian and you follow that faith doesn't make you, you know, I mean, sin, you know? And it doesn't make you hate people, right?
It shouldn't.
It doesn't for me, and I'm just speaking for me.
It does, and I agree. But I definitely feel like there is hate that comes from within certain realms of any religion. You know, just as you have the terrorists that might want to blow people up in Islam, we've still got some people.
Yeah, right.
Within.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, that's probably more to a fundamentalist or an extreme. And I'm just saying, religion. Speaking for myself, I mean, man, we teach.
Speaking of, what did you think about the Super Bowl commercial of Jesus washes feet?
You know, that got a lot of attention. I didn't take it. I did not interpret it the way that it seemed like some pundits and national media took it.
And I understood the argument of the people who took it wrong to say it's, you know, trying to say Jesus accepts all of this.
I didn't take it that way at all.
I took it as Jesus will meet you where you are.
I took it as Jesus is challenging you to love people who you don't agree with. His commandment is to love God above all else and then love your neighbor, right? That's in Scripture. And the second most important, loving your neighbor, that's what that was saying. And he was challenging the flesh of you, that you don't want to wash the feet of someone who disagrees with you.
Well, we even see it in politics. I mean, you look at, I'm going to use our congressman here. Ralph has always been a very strong conservative for 12 years?
Yeah.
Now you've got people that are just foaming at the mouth because he endorsed Nikki. And it's like, oh, he's a rhino? Like, this is ridiculous. Come on now. Like, just let's use our common sense. And there's too much of this division and hate.
I tell you, well, this is another thing. This is BS. This collective memory of 20 seconds is just so frustrating, man. I mean,
that's just politics.
People don't remember that Nikki Haley was a Tea Party Republican, okay? She was the outsider, guys. She pissed everybody off. She tried to play in the system for 2 or 3 terms, and then when she finally bucked it, guess what? She got demoted.
Yeah.
And she knew then she could not work within that system anymore.
She had to run for governor.
And she had to run for governor. And that was a crowded field, man. She ran against, 4 or 5 guys? Well-known guys. Henry McMaster, Andre Bauer, whoever.
She was the only minority woman as a governor.
Yeah. And she bucked the system and worked her tail off going door-to-door retail politics, speaking to the people.
Yeah,
right?
and I don't want to take that away from her.
And she won the governorship. No one gave her a shot. No one. Let's be honest. I even remember.
I supported her whenever she ran for governor.
I remember. I wasn't even paying attention. But I remember looking on that, Nikki who? You know, I was like, who is this? I didn't even know her. But the point of that all to say is,
but they're going after the narrative and what they're seeing since the UN and
she's an opportunist. She's a career politician. She's a I get it.
Just because she's successful afterwards does not mean that she's corrupt. Now, does it give the image of it?
Well, and here's
another thing.
How
people spin stuff. But
let's take this.
And by the way, I'm not a Nikki Haley supporter in this race. So don't sit here and think, you got 2 Nikki Haley supporters going back and forth.
Yep.
You know, I'm on Team Trump.
Yep.
He's supporting Team Nikki.
Yeah.
And
and guess what? We're still able to sit across from each other.
It's amazing.
Have a beer, talk about it.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, But that's the whole thing. Like, it drives me crazy that a New York Democrat just 10, 15 years ago is a litmus test here in the state of South Carolina for what's conservative and what isn't. And again,
I think what people buy in with Trump is the shaking up of the system. And I appreciate that. If it wasn't for people like Trump, who might be, I feel, is misunderstood many times in things that he says. Some things I think that he says he really shouldn't say.
I don't think it's misunderstood. I just think he's careless with his words.
So whenever
you know what I mean? And again, I don't
think
he intends. Sometimes the left-leaning media will just make him out to be just terrible, right?
Yeah,
evil, tan, orange man. But I just don't think he really cares. I don't think he. I
think that's what people like about him.
We say words matter. He just throws it out the window.
What the things that I don't like is whenever he says something that is outright a lie, like about the New York and California handling COVID better. Like, I can't buy into that stuff. And what I can't stand is the people
when
who
he
are
was
the biggest supporters.
Take
it as the gospel. I don't like those things. And I wish that we could be more cordial whenever we're talking to one another.
Yeah.
In that aspect.
Well,
but
I mean,
I do think a lot of things are taken out of context. Like whenever he said Mexico's not sending us their best, they're sending us, rapist, murder. Everyone's like, oh, he hates Mexicans.
He's saying Hispanics are all rapists. Come on, man.
Yeah. I mean, that is a complete spin. And I tell people all the time, even in 2016, I wasn't a Trump supporter.
Right.
But I became a Trump supporter. But I became more of a Trump defender at that time because of the lies and everything coming at him. And I think a lot of people are that way. They're tired of seeing the falsehoods that are put on him. So anytime Nikki says anything, it doesn't matter if there's a truth or DeSantis says something.
Right.
It doesn't matter if there's truth to it or not. People feel like he's getting attacked unfairly.
Well, I also think that Trump, for a long, long time, and even now, being conservative isn't cool. It just isn't. It's always cool to be a Democrat. It seems to be promoted more.
Al Gore was not cool.
Nope. I'm not saying here in South Carolina, but I'm saying national.
Yeah.
From that sort of, national coverage of politics is Obama was cool. He was smooth.
He was cool for a commie.
Listen, I'm not saying I agree. I'm just saying that is the general left-leaning media's, they're selling it, I mean, take, for instance, Joe Biden hasn't got a tough question in 2 or 3 years. He's just now starting to get them because it's apparent he can't. You ask him 2 + 2, he's going to tell you Jell-O. You know what I mean?
Joe Biden is the picture perfect cool if we're filming Weekend at Bernie's. Like, he is the guy that you could take.
So my point, back to Trump, my point is I think Trump has that brashness of, hey, I don't really care what you think. I'm going to tell you because.
That's the stuff I don't like. But what I do like is we weren't going to war.
Yeah.
I don't care if people weren't attacking us because they thought he was crazy. Bottom line is we weren't entering into wars.
Yeah, I agree. Listen, the environment as far as an economic standpoint, national security, all of those things that you check as a conservative, I was fine with as Trump being president, weren't you?
I think he can handle Pooty Poot Putin.
But living through all of the – so and as a Haley supporter, here's another thing. Man, Trump never really got a fair shake. The minute he got into office, man, whether it was who was his national security advisor, Flynn, who immediately had to resign because of some.
But he appointed him,
right? But it turns out that it was just a BS thing.
Well, and here's the thing,
and he got, I think. They got Flynn on getting information that he wasn't supposed to get until he was officially sworn in, which is a common practice. Everyone does it, and they just decided to nail him to the wall because of it, because of Trump. And so I think there were some landmines that were laid by the previous administration before Trump got there, and they slowly started exploding as he got in.
And I think they're continuing. I mean, if you look at them choosing not to charge Joe Biden for having documents for being a frail old man compared to what they're doing to Trump.
listen, if anyone who is potentially have committed a crime, if they cannot remember important times of their life, whether it's his son dying or being vice president.
If I'm on stand, that is my defense. So don't give me that.
It is a legal strategy that I may implement. But,
I'm sorry, sir. I cannot remember.
Yeah, I think Reagan used that in 88.
What was that,
86
Sopranos?
Iran-Contra.
No, the Sopranos, the Uncle June. What's my name? Is this my house? Is this my house?
Right. So, yeah, I mean, I thought Trump was a good president for that time. You know, I mean, man, could you imagine if Hillary got elected? Yeah, right. It would have been the same old, right?
It would have been like Putin being president. The majority of the people who opposed her are already dead. So I'm sure some other ones would have died.
Oh, here we go.
I mean,
speaking of, did you hear the Putin guy that died in prison?
You can't.
He just died today in prison. God. Yeah, it was like.
Well, you know that's the truth. Like, you got over 50. Where there's smoke, there's fire. Like, you can't just.
Yeah,
there's got to be some time. And I mean, going back to, we talked about conspiracy theories, and that's something we want to talk about.
Yeah.
I mean, I can bring this all
wait a minute.
the way back to Barry Seal.
You're saying Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself? Wait a minute. The guards were off duty drinking coffee. All the cameras shut off. And at the same time.
We will just say that Jeffrey Epstein and my Christmas lights neither hung themselves this year.
Yeah, man. Well, another thing we tackled this week was constitutional carry.
Yes. Oh, man. We've been talking for a while. We haven't got the constitutional carry.
I know, man. And, the Senate sent it back over. Just for the two listeners out there, the House passed constitutional carry last year.
Yes.
And
a clean constitutional carry.
That's right. We passed the House bill that Bobby Cox was the lead sponsor on. And the Senate sent it back over with, what was it, like 40-something amendments?
I don't remember how many there were. I mean, there wasn't 40 that I completely disagreed with. Yeah, right. But there was a few, which we discussed in the previous episode, so we don't have to get into the weeds on that. But essentially, we as Republicans could not agree on what was the best route to take. And with that, so we chose to non-concur and send our bill back
we did decide the best route to take, which was to non-concur. But initially, I thought we tried to go through all the amendments and judge them on their merits.
Say which ones we could take out.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And it was just, guys, this is lipstick on a pig. We need to get it back to the original form. So.
And and what will happen now is it will go to conference where 3 House members, 3 senators will sit down and they will negotiate.
Yep. And the House announced, I believe, Thursday morning, our House conferees are Justin Bamberg, Micah Caskey.
Which is a pro-Second Amendment Democrat.
Yeah. Micah Caskey. Just go check out Bamberg's Twitter account.
Micah Caskey, former military.
Yep. And the sponsor of the bill, Bobby Cox.
Which is Mr. President himself. Bobby just reminds me of like a presidential
Yeah, he's got
figure.
that look,
It's all so just straight, prim, proper, but he's totally a badass.
Oh, absolutely. He's a former Ranger.
Yeah, I know. But that's what I love it. Like, these guys that look so clean, like, you're like, oh, yeah, nothing to him. Then it's like, no, he'll kill you.
If there's a 007 in the House, that's Bobby Cox. That's right. So, yeah, we'll see what they can do. I'm hopeful that the Senate conferees, will come with,
I want to hit on a couple of things with that real quick. Okay. And I'm not going to spend too long on it. But, we saw the Freedom Caucus and Adam put out a tweet, I think it was. I remember seeing the video after we passed it. And it's essentially Freedom Caucus claiming victory, which I don't have a problem with that. What I have a problem with is...
Well, it's Freedom Caucus. I don't have a problem
with... Which Bobby used to be Freedom Caucus.
I don't have any problem with members claiming a policy victory.
Right. I don't have a problem with that because all of us were pretty much on the same page with getting that done. What I do have a problem with is claiming that while we don't care about credit and then the remaining 3 minutes of the video is all about why we deserve credit. And then whoever runs their newsletter or whatever it is.
Yeah. It's probably the same guy that runs their social media that you have fun with.
That prick. But anyway, so they sent out an email with a screenshot of my Facebook post.
So you're the leader of the Republican caucus
which
now.
I typed up. This is the funniest part, is I typed that up before we even got out of our first caucus.
Yeah.
About the options that I saw what I saw as being options.
Yep.
Funny thing is, not a single one of those ended up true. Like, this is my transparency of where I thought it was going to be. None of it ended up being true. But the sentence that I used in there is, we have the NRA, or I said, we have the NRA support. What I meant was, we as the legislative body, we as the House who has the bill before us, not we as in the Republican caucus. And they send it out as if I'm some speaker for the Republican caucus, which as a one-year freshman, I mean, I'm glad that you thought that I could embed myself so deep within the swamp.
Right.
But
well, you are on the judiciary committee too.
I mean, I don't even raise my hand in caucus meetings hardly.
No.
You know, I understand that
There's
I'm
a lot
a freshman.
of listening going on.
There's a lot more listening. But anyway, I had to get that out there. We can move on now.
So do we need to call you leader Guffey? You know,
if that's ever said,
maybe if you can get an armband on your that goes over your jacket, so we know, designates you as leader,
like a red one, or what are you talking?
So yeah, I tell you, I don't know, man. That's the difference in what we're trying to do as far as governing versus.
I don't care where the credit comes from.
The politics of.
We've talked about other bills in the House. I'm happy as long as we're getting good legislation passed.
Nobody cares.
And you know, do I think that the grassroots had some sway in some members? Probably. Mm-hmm. But as I said before, if I was getting those grassroots emails, they were going pretty much into an archive file.
Yeah, I just
it was the same message over and over.
Again, you can't govern from social media.
Who can't?
And it seems like a lot of our Freedom Caucus brothers and sisters tend to take to social media and take credit or suggest that, hey, because of our pressure, which, you know, again, I find laughable, this is why we made the decision that we did.
No.
And I'm like, what? What? What are you talking about?
There's always that. And, you know, if I said, hey, call everybody on this, then that's the pressure. You know? I mean, but really, how much weight does that carry? And I think I've discussed my view here before. I'm happy to listen to somebody, but very rarely will you change my mind.
Yeah, right.
And then we have one additional sponsor today, and it is a special one. So if you like local artists and musicians, Matt Tucker Band has released their album as of midnight, and will be releasing the American Dreamer video, which I'm very happy about. That's one of the things that we were able to help try and set up, and we're going to play a little bit during the podcast today.
Yeah, good deal. All right, lastly, I don't know if we did anything, you know, that the public would have seen on streaming or this, that, and the other, but you know, the ad hoc committee finished up last week. Made some recommendations. I believe it was about 17. And I thought we said no pride of authorship.
I mean, I just want to know that I was counted.
So Chairman Newton and Chairman Pope came up with some, got a bill, and I think we're still
working out some kinks.
Up. Yeah.
And that's been a discussion within the Judiciary Committee, which we can't go too much into detail on that, though.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that
we don't want to get people all riled up before the bill is actually written.
Yep, that's
and submitted.
Right. So we're going into a House furlough next week.
Yes.
And I think they're going to spend the week just trying to get that polished up.
Like, why submit a bill and then all of a sudden people misinterpret or some spin gets out there?
Yeah, right.
And then you've got a week of not being able to respond.
Yep. But I tell you, I do like some of the things that I heard about, you know, just if you have 7 applicants, find them qualified or not. All the qualified get out. You know, just relinquishing that cap on a judge seat. And I think you and I both enjoyed no commitments.
Yeah, I that was one of the things that we talked about.
Yeah, man.
Before. And we don't know exactly what all is going to finalize on there.
It's just ideas that we've heard kicked around.
Yeah,
I tell you,
no commitments would be huge. The non-limit or not holding the cap to 3, which is a lot of times allows you to put 2 unqualified essentially and 1 qualified to kind of twist the arm of people.
That's right. And again, it's just sort of trying to debunk the idea that races are fixed and again, all those types of things. So, you know, if you turn out all qualified, man, and then no commitments, until some time period before we actually vote on the floor.
A very short time period.
Yeah, right.
So that way there is not this push of, well, such and such supports this person, such and such supports this person.
Yep.
It gives us time to actually vet the candidates with the report from the JMSC, which very few people actually read.
This is true.
It gives us the opportunity to do that. And in my opinion, I mean, if I could just not show up to Columbia that month that we are doing judges, I would. It is my most hated part of this job because you can't get out of the elevator. You can't walk out of the bathroom and let your hands dry without a judge waiting to shake your hand and talk to you.
That's when you give them the fist bump, you know?
Is that what you're supposed to do? I've been doing it all wrong.
you just shake it with a semi-wet hand.
I always check my zipper and go ahead and dry my hands while I'm at it and then shake their hand. That would be so wrong.
Hey, I tell you, another one that I liked was term limits.
Yes.
Term limits for JMSC members. And just, again, making sure that judge candidates don't see the same makeup of the JMSC twice. Another one I enjoyed was having some sort of executive branch appointments. I don't know the exact number.
Yeah.
But having the governor
and moving it off-site.
Yeah, get in that boat with us. And then, that's a standalone thing and has its own staff.
And these were all recommendations, by the way. So we're not saying that all of this stuff is going to be in this bill.
Correct.
Don't want to confuse anyone.
Yep. Some may, some may not. Those are just some of the, out of the 16 recommendations, those are the ones I thought we all liked. So,
and I think Alan Wilson was a big proponent for moving it off-site. He wanted it to be separated from the state house grounds.
Yep.
So that way there is not that judicial influence there. But I'm excited to see the bill come out late, perhaps within my committee this week, but we won't be able to release it until later with it being on judiciary. But we will get there. And
that's right. And
speaking of a bunch of people in the block building, what happened this week?
Speaking of the premier higher education institute of South Carolina. We had Carolina Day on Tuesday. And, man, I tell you, that was fun, man.
I wore a garnet tie.
That's right.
I was being respectful.
Oh, I went straight up white shirt, garnet tie, and black suit. So.
I mean, whenever Dabo come into town, you wore the orange striped tie just for him. So
that was a coincidence. Never
the only time I've ever seen you wear orange, too.
Right.
Happened to be the day Dabo
I literally
comes.
have like that dull orange tie and then a bright red tie. And I haven't read the bright red tie this year. I sort of wear that when it gets warmer.
Yeah.
But, yeah, no kidding. But, hey, I do like that tie.
I mean, you did match Dabo.
Credit to McFadden's on Main Street in Rock Hill.
Yeah.
Who should be a sponsor. I tell you, that guy makes you look good.
As many jackets as you buy, you might be right.
If you can make this guy look good. But anyway, back to Carolina Day. Man, so we just had students, ambassadors of the university, come and just walk the halls, talk to us.
We had a lot of the medical students hanging out in our office that we were talking to.
Man, I tell you, meeting those medical students literally changed the trajectory of my week.
Yeah.
It got me down a rabbit hole that I'm still in. And here's the story. We had 5 med students, I think 2 Andrews, a Bailey, an Adam, and a Ryan. And we chatted.
How do you remember this stuff? Good Lord.
We chatted for a while, and they were, first, second year, third year. Some were residents, and
your assessment was all the names. My assessment was one chick and 4 dudes.
Yep. So it was, it was just hearing their stories about their experience in med school, and then what they wanted to do with it and that sort of thing. 2 out of the 5 were going into the military, and I was
That's because it pays for it.
I said, wait a minute. You mean to tell me that you decided to go into the military that's going to take you out of state or wherever? Why didn't you just stay in state? And they talked about it, and they said, well, they have a loan forgiveness program.
Mm-hmm. That's what my cousin did.
And I said, wait a minute. Why don't we do that for the state? And they were like, man, we'd love it. If y'all were to do that, we would stay here. And I said,
I disagree.
What do you mean we can't do it?
We give too much money. School, we used to be able to go to college for like 10 grand a semester. Now it's like 40 grand.
Okay.
And the only reason it costs so much is because we keep supplementing these costs of education. If people had to pay out of their pocket, no different than insurance, people had to pay 40 grand a semester to go to school, and they know they're never going to make that back, they would not pay that school. Therefore, that school would lower their cost.
Okay.
And we keep funding the universities, and the universities are not going to be happy with me saying that. Yep. I don't care.
So
I think that is one of the biggest waste of money that we have in the state.
So,
had to get it out. Sorry.
So, no. So you go to the health clinic to receive your health care?
No. I go to a doctor.
I ain't going to a health clinic.
Yeah. That's where I got that rubber that ended up with my second kid. No, I'm just kidding.
So I think we can, and here's why. The money that we set aside for the lottery for Palmetto scholarships, we had $152 million.
Well, I'm perfectly fine with using that money if we use it.
Okay.
So why aren't we using it? Why are we putting money in our budget for these universities whenever you got $152 million?
We fully funded everyone who met the criteria for the Palmetto scholarship, and still $152 million sat in a bank account unused.
And is that what the Post was yesterday, talking about the surplus?
I don't know.
I believe that. Well,
and here's another figure that I found out after I met these med students. I had a couple meetings. Did you know that 80% of Palmetto Life Scholarship recipients lose it in the first year? 80%.
It's kind of like the freshman 15.
Come on, bro. All you got to do is make an A or a B to keep that. But the numbers don't lie. 80% lose it. So that might be one of the reasons, so there's money out there that's just sitting. It's already been received into state coffers through the lottery, but we're not using it. And talking to the Commissioner on Higher Education, they fully funded.
This is intentional.
Work with me, folks. They fully funded everyone who met the criteria for the Palmetto Life Scholarship. So it's not like they were doing anything wrong.
Yeah.
So there is money available, and if there's money available,
all right.
The listeners are just going to have to work with us. So anyway, exploring those types of things where we can keep, I mean, man, you got to think our population, percentage-wise, it's getting older. And I don't know what our state population percentage is, but we have an elderly population that come down here to retire.
Let's think about this, though, Heath. If school was not 40 grand a semester and it was truly rated on return on investment, same problem that we have with our insurance right now, the cost skyrocketing because so much is being funded. Don't be for Obamacare and then be for and be against public education and vice versa.
If you want to talk about...
Because once government gets involved, the cost raise significantly, and that becomes my problem.
No. So if you want to get involved... I mean, if you truly want to make an impact on the cost of college education, we need to talk about tenure.
Oh, yeah. I'm for getting rid of tenure.
Me
Let's
too.
get rid of it.
No other profession has tenure after a few years.
Politicians used to, but we got rid of that in South Carolina.
So, yeah, I'm all for trying to keep, I mean, as a person who had to go and get student loans on my name, I'm still paying my student loan off, and so is my wife. I paid for my own schooling. I went out and took the loan out. So as a person who's experienced that personally, I agree with you. I would love to keep it as low as possible, but we can't have that conversation without talking about other reforms within higher education, and that includes not so much eliminating tenure, but maybe upping the criteria to achieve tenure. But that's for another episode.
No other profession has it. Eliminate it. Pretty simple.
Also, another plug. We're drinking these pints of Scandale's beer in the holes at the 19th. Have you heard about this new place?
Not.
Yeah, it's the old Mercantile at the warehouses on White.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the 19th.
I didn't know it was open.
It's not.
Okay.
It's still under construction. I went by to check it out. Their simulator is in and working, and stopped by this past weekend. And man, it is
looking good.
Folks, this is going to be a new place for people to come to Rock Hill, or just for the locals to enjoy. It is going to be 4 golf simulators, and then also 2 private rooms that you can rent out for birthday parties or whatnot. And it is basically all weather, all season golf. And you can pick famous courses. You can't play Augusta. That's trademark. but all the other major name courses, like I'm sure Torrey Pines is going to be on there, and TPC Sawgrass down in Jacksonville is going to be on there. That famous Island Green, number 17, that's going to be on there. And so, and man, I was talking to the owner, Harrison Dixon. You may know.
Yeah. Great guy.
Man, it's $40 an hour for a simulator. So me, you, and 2 buddies can go play golf, basically $10 an hour, and we can play 18 holes of simulator golf, which is,
without having to drive the course and waiting for a buddy to fall off the course.
No, and guess what? it takes half the time of a normal course.
Mm-hmm.
So it takes maybe hour and a half, 2 hours. And they're going to have where you can just order your own beer, and from a machine right there while you're playing at your simulator, and the server will bring it to you. So they're going to have pub food, bar snacks, all that kind of stuff. So it's going to be a cool place for golfers or non-golfers alike can have a good time. And if you want to be serious, you can bring your own golf coach in during the day and get
work on it there.
Yeah, real games. So it's not just going to be for golf either. There's other sports that you can switch the simulator to.
So instead of being, I was about to say I'm only going to be able to smoke a half a pack of cigarettes on the golf course. So this is half the time. I can't even smoke in there, so I have to step outside.
Yeah, that's right. Got to step in that alleyway back there, you know. But yeah, looking forward to visiting that place soon. I think it's scheduled to open in April. So by the time Masters and the Heritage down in Hilton Head's being played, that place will be should be bumping.
Awesome.
Yeah, man. So local issues. You got a sign issue?
Yeah. So in Lake Wiley, evidently I've
That's your district, right?
Yes.
We don't have that problem
But there's a Lake Wiley overlay, which since Lake Wiley does not want to be incorporated, they have an overlay that allows them to put in rules kind of similar to a city to allow them to have different rules, which I'm fine with these overlays.
All right, let me ask you this. Just quick, let's get in a ditch for a second. Why doesn't Lake Wiley incorporate? I understand the arguments. You don't want to pay taxes. You got your own trash and all those services, and we don't want to pay taxes. We want to keep taxes as low as possible. Then stop acting like your own municipality.
Well,
certain parts of the
they're
county,
staying within their rules.
Certain parts of the county have an overlay just for Lake Wiley. Guess what?
Now, Lake Wiley does pay a significant part of the taxes. But same thing with Fort Mill. Outside of the township of Fort Mill, there's plenty of that area that's very wealthy. Say Baxter.
Yeah, right.
Is not incorporated. So they're not part of a township.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be its own town.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Lake Wiley
Fort Mill,
would be the 8th largest city in South Carolina, beating Somerville.
No, that's good. Hey, that's Goose Creek.
Or Goose Creek, sorry. And we say that because we're always picking on Brandon Cox on that.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't know if that stat's real, so don't go give me numbers and say, oh, it would not be the 8th largest. I don't really care. I'm just joking. But anyway, so evidently they have a sign ordinance in Lake Wiley that states that just in this overlay district, that any sign over 4 feet, you have to pay a $100 fine for.
4 square feet.
4 square feet.
So that's a 2x2.
Which there's no, I don't.
That's basically a yard sign. You cannot put, so a typical.
In my race, my opponent had an 8 foot by 4 foot.
Yes,
sign.
yes. So the typical large volume, on Celanese Road, you would put a 4x8.
But at the 2x2 size, which most of them are not 2x2.
They're basically saying yard signs.
The intent should have been that, but no one has that shape of a perfectly square political sign.
No. They're saying it can't be greater than 4 square feet, which I think only allows for that yard sign that you put in the metal.
I don't think it does. But it also says that it can only be 60 days of the year and no more than 30 days at a time. So let's say you've got a Republican primary, or you've got the primary you got to run for. Then you've got to run.
Are you serious? Wait a minute.
Yeah. Oh, no, I've already got legal check in the constitutionality of this, or
no,
whether
this
it's
sounds
actually
like,
legal. This sounds like government overreach at its best.
This sounds like fascism to me.
Yeah. And I can understand you want to eliminate all the what do you call it? Like the business signs, the pressure wash, buy my house cheap. You want to eliminate all that.
We buy crappy
I understand.
houses.
But bottom line is I truly believe that there is a law against holding political signs to these same standards, because I know we've used it against HOAs before. And so now I've got legal vetting this, and I will be going after York County Council if this is illegal, because their legal team is supposed to vet all of this.
Yeah, right.
So it just doesn't make sense to me.
Do they have 29 lawyers on their legal team?
This is what's funny.
Do they have 29 lawyers?
No, they go at 1. Or no, 2. 1 and an assistant.
Okay.
But what's funny is York County is complaint only based. So that means someone had to call to complain about a political sign, which even during my race, no one ever received an email or a letter or anything of that nature.
So wait a minute. Let's say you and I could be running against each other in a dog catcher race. All it takes is you complaining about my signs?
One person complains, and all of a sudden the county has to reply. And they don't tell you who the complaint comes from. I understand you got to keep things protected. I'm not worried about who it came from. Yeah, I've never liked the complaint only basis. Right.
It's like the comment box,
Yeah, because whenever I was on York County Council, one of the problems I had with the complaint-based problem was a county employee was filing the complaint with a guy that he butted heads with on a camper, and that was just BS. Like, come on now.
Yeah, that's inside baseball right there.
Let me ride down the road. You're in between 2 junkyards, but let me complain on your yard because your gravel does not meet this size.
Yeah, right.
Like, just ridiculous stuff. But anyway.
So there's another local issue that we've been trying to address. For
talking about the medical?
Nope. For the last year, it got brought to our attention when we were in Greenville, remember? For a caucus retreat. And for those of you who don't know, there is a property tax, I think, loophole.
Oh, gosh, yes.
That allows developers, if you provide affordable housing, I believe is the term they use, that if you meet certain standards for affordable housing, you don't have to pay your property taxes.
Yeah.
And some of the issues, I think they made that change in the last session.
But it's costing like City of Rock Hill millions of dollars.
And
it's
the school
costing
district.
York County
It's
millions of dollars. It's the schools that are not getting the money.
Yeah, correct. And again, not saying that this
because these are commercial properties.
Yep.
Commercial properties are what pays school taxes.
Yeah. And I think the intent was to encourage affordable housing to be built. But at what costs is the question. So
I want to cure childhood cancer
at the cost of fully funding our schools. So, we're trying to look at that. I think Senator Johnson has a bill in the Senate right now.
I think it's about time for true tax reform.
Oh,
that's a heavy lift. That's more of a Heath Sessions lift.
Well, I have a parallel bill in the House that matches what Senator Johnson's trying to do in his efforts there in the Senate. So we'll see what we can do with that this session before crossover.
And then I've got one other local issue.
All right.
Retaining walls with LLR.
Oh, yeah, you and I talked about this.
In local municipalities, it makes no sense, but they are telling our hardscapers that have masonry license, which they had to get to be able to install retaining walls above 4 feet. And I know this sounds insignificant, but already you have to hire a structural engineer, which you have to have them come out during the process and inspect if you're doing things right. Truthfully, 90% of the people don't do things right. The ones being punished are the ones doing things right.
Correct.
And trying to follow the laws.
But this is like any law, right? So you make a gun law, it's really only impacting the folks who legally
but I was in this
abide by gun laws anyway. Same thing here. Yeah. You're talking about someone made a reg that they thought was well-intentioned.
But no one can tell me when this reg happened.
Oh, really?
I mean, I've been in this business for 15 years. I was selling walls to these contractors. I'm certified on a national level. State of South Carolina doesn't have a license specifically for retaining walls or landscaping. So the closest thing you could get was masonry.
And this is why citizen government is so important. You need people with real life experience. You know what I mean?
I
because
agree.
You got so many folks who make these decisions on zoning, planning, permitting, and all these things, and they don't know the negative impacts or the unintended impacts of these things.
It's the bureaucracy on certain levels. So in this case, and we dealt with this within, I have a friend that works with planning within a municipality, and I was always told, like, I'm not going to put my job on the line for you. If you want clearer clarification, write it more clear, right? But laws move very slow, and I completely can understand that. But in this situation, 90% of the municipalities are not looking at it that way. You have one municipality that is saying you can't build a retaining wall unless you have a home builder's license. Now, home builders don't want to do this because that's more risk and that's more going on there.
Correct.
And so this is something that we're going to have to address. And
again, man, this is something that I just want to get that drum line in there.
I love having, yeah.
Hey, speaking of complaint box, where's this one? No, but seriously,
we're recording in the middle of a hurricane.
But folks got to understand, regs are great. I
disagree.
No.
Screw the regs. Get rid of all of them.
I'm saying, sorry. Let me back up. Safety regs, right? Well-intentioned. You got to wear a hard hat. You got to have safety vest. You got to have steel-toe boots when you walk on any site that we work on, right? And
that's because employers were too lazy to give employees
sometimes
these
regs, exactly. Sometimes these regs are cumbersome. But you got to also understand, there was a reason these regs were there. Some idiot or some irresponsible business owner was letting his construction worker employees who were working with thousands of pounds, being held over their head. And then guess what happened? Right?
It's the reason.
It's the same thing what you're talking about. The irresponsible, off the book hardscapers.
Like me getting catapulted from a Moffett delivering block.
And landscapers. Right. Those folks are the reason that reg got put in there. So it's anything over 4 feet. You have to have a GC license?
You have to have a general contractor's license.
Okay, so just
with
for everybody,
no notification.
All right, so just for all those 2 listeners out there, all this does is create a greater cost to the consumer for the product.
Everything. So an average retaining wall is around $30,000 for a medium-sized retaining wall. Now you're talking about adding on about an additional $6,000 to that cost. Then you're talking about home builders that have to pull the license.
I close my eyes.
Their insurance costs rising.
Come
because
on.
they're
You
having
don't
to
hear
sign
that?
off on these.
You're my boy, Blue.
All right. Well, we'll get into it a little bit more, but
yeah, I mean, but again, this is local regulation. Again, probably well intentioned, but it's going to end up costing the consumer. Would you say $6? So
$6,000 on the average.
Okay,
But
so
but on a $100,000 wall, you're looking at $20,000 more.
So
the people in TKK, an extra $20,000 for your retaining wall.
20% higher costs
Or
that gets passed down to the consumer.
Yep.
Because of this well-intended
because of
reg.
no because of one employee and the way that they are interpreting what is written. And I've dealt with this because elected officials can't contact the one employee to say, hey, you're misinterpreting this. The one employee is then talking to someone at LLR, which says your license doesn't cover this. That becomes the issue. So I'm working with Chairman Bradley to try and figure out and staff.
He's good.
Yeah. So I'm not happy about it, and I want to get it fixed. I'm also working with the local municipality to say, hey, y'all need to figure out through your management what is going on.
Yeah, right.
Why do you have one employee? And even whenever I have written things and then had an employee tell me, well, this is the way I interpret it, and I'm like, I'm the one who wrote it.
Right.
You should listen to my interpretation.
I sponsored the damn thing. All right. Well, again, thanks everybody for listening, the two of you out there. And
episode 7.2.
Yep.
7.1 and 7.2.
Yeah, that's right. And again, thanks to our sponsors, Comer Distributing and 742 North. We appreciate the
and Matt Tucker Band.
Yeah, man.
Get out and get that album.
You know what? I'm gonna go home and listen to that.
The video's out while we were recording.
Oh, nice.
So the video's out, which is, American Dreamers, and it talks about everything that we have is created by first responders, whether that's military, police, fire.
Oh, right.
And we need to thank
and the album
those people.
title is
Untucked.
Untucked. All right, go out and check that out.
All right. And Off the Track, since that's where we got this Comer beer from.
Yeah, man.
It's delicious.
And Scandals.
Them Chester boys do it pretty good.
Yep, they do. They do. All right, see y'all next week.
Have a good one.
In this town, every bar knows everybody by their first name. Feels good to be around, but Hollywood is just a wish away. Couple cars, couple kids, pretty house with a picket fence. Beauty queen, diamond ring, football star, maybe president. Anything you want or who you wanna be, you can be. Just remember those who make this life so easy. Raise them up to the small town believers. Hats off to the fighters and the leaders. Here's to you, here's to me, here's to us being free. Raise them up to the highway bleeders. Hats off to the farmers and the preachers. Say a prayer for the ones that allow us to be the American dreamer. Moms and dads, family, friends, barbecues on Sundays. Faster cars, good cigars, better whiskey, instant replays. We got it good, got it made, don't forget what matters when you're chasing down that happy ever after. Raise them up to the small town believers. Hats off to the fighters and the leaders. Here's to you, here's to me, here's to us being free. Raise them up to the highway bleeders. Hats off to the farmers and the preachers. Say a prayer for the ones that allow us to be the American dream. us being free. Raise them up to the highway bleeders. Hats off to the farmers and the preachers. Say a prayer for